G'day there, this is Rick Brewster from the Angels, and you're listening to the Australian Rock Show.
Hey everyone, it is Dennis Gray and you are listening to show number 75 of the Australian Rock Show. Once again, thank you for taking the time to listen in. However you listen in, we really do appreciate it. Had a great response from the previous show, which was the interview with Steve Mascord. It was a blast chatting to Steve about rock and roll and also about his publication Touchstones. And on this show, we've got another book-themed show lined up, one which I'm very excited about. On this show, we are joined by the great Rick Brewster from the Angels to talk about the recent book on the band, which is, in my opinion, one of the most long overdue and much needed rock books to be published. The book, which is simply titled The Angels, is written by Bob Yates, along with Rick and John Brewster, and is out and about in the bookstores now. There has been plenty written about the Angels over the years. Murray Englehart's Blood, Sweat and Beers publication, where he looks over the band in detail, is indispensable, and a book you should definitely also own. And now, to complement that, we have this book, which is solely devoted to the Angels. As I just said, and I'm sure that many of you out there agree with me, a well-detailed book on the Angels is long overdue, and it's cool that this book has finally been written. John and Rick Brewster from the Angels are doing a bunch of in-stores about the place to coincide with the book launch. I'll read those dates at the end of this show. You know, I never need a reason to play some Angels. However, the release of this great publication is as good a reason as any. If you're a long-time fan of the Angels, Angel City for our North American listeners, I know you'll dig this episode. We will get to the interview with Rick in a bit, straight after a song to get you all warmed up. Turn this sucker up nice and loud, folks, from 1979's No Exit album. Here is Shadowboxer. Hey Rick, it's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show. How are you?
Good, thanks, Dennis. How are you?
Look, I'm very well. We've got you on the phone today to talk about the Angels book. I, along with many others, believe that a well-written publication on the band is long overdue. I believe you and John had desired to have a book written for quite some time. Are you satisfied to have much of the band's story finally down in print?
Oh, very much, yeah. We have talked about it for probably 15, 20 years. We should write a book. It took us this long to get someone who would do it. And Bob Yates, after initially declining, we came back to him a year later after trying another couple of people who all thought it was a bit too long and hard, including Bob.
Well, importantly, Rick, since the
second time we asked him, he agreed. Sorry, say again?
That's all right. And importantly, since the addition of Dave Gleeson, Nick Norton and Sam, the story of the Angels is very much still being written, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The band's been an evolving thing right from the start. I guess with most bands, you get similar stories, but this one, right from the start, we started with a drummer called Charlie King, and John and Doc and myself. And down the track, we got Chris and Buzz, and stayed that lineup till 1980, I think, when Buzz left, and then Chris left soon after that. And it was Brent and Jim in the band. And much later, we reconnected, had a good couple of years with the original band. We call it original, even though it wasn't the real original band. But that was the lineup that broke through with the albums, particularly Face to Face and No Exit and Darkroom. And then Doc left the band in 2010. He left the band and 18 months later passed away from brain tumour. And a lot of people think that was the point where we got Dave Gleeson involved. But it wasn't. We got Dave Gleeson and Nick Norton because Buzz left with Doc. And so when we heard the news, we'd already been working with Dave and Nick for at least a year. And didn't have a lot of contact with Doc. We didn't hear directly from anyone. Remember who we heard from? It might have been a post on Facebook. That was all very sad, and we lost Chris Bailey as well. during that period. They were about a year apart.
Well, Rick, before we get into the book, I would like to point out that there were some doubtful fans out there who thought that there could never be an Angels without Doc. Yet these past few years have proved those doubters wrong. And in fact, what we have is an Angels outfit with as much power and validity, in my opinion, as there's ever been.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that. We believe exactly the same thing. No one's pretending it's the same band because it's got different members. But to me and John, the only originals still here, it has, for a long, long time, we've always said that the songs are the songs are bigger than the band. And as long as we can deliver those songs, people are going to want to hear them, and we certainly want to play them. And we found straight away with Gleason out front, we don't remember seeing anyone in the crowd. We saw a few folded arms. Okay, prove yourselves. But no, where's Doc? Screaming from the audience. They just got into it, dug it to the music.
Let me ask you a couple of things about the current lineup. Starting with Dave, was there an electric feeling, I guess, you had when he jumped on stage and jammed with you and John in the Adelaide Hills that first time a few years back? I mean, it seemed like a good fit straight away. It was.
That was instant for me and John. I had many years before then, when we did shows like the Lounge Lizards, not Lounge Lizards, Barbed Wire Ball tour with Screaming Jets supporting us. And I used to think then, if Doc ever falls over, this guy, he would be my number one pick. And that was backed up again. The Bon Scott statue, what was that? Fremantle. It was a large outdoor concert, and we played it as a four-piece band with John singing, which we called the Original Angels Band. And it was Screaming Jets were on the bill, and I watched Dave again then. And at that time, Doc wasn't in the band. He left in 2000, and it wasn't until 2008 that we reunited with him, which is the reason we went out as a four-piece band. And I thought again, wow, Dave Gleason would be a great match for this band. But at that time, Screaming Jets were still active. They were touring, and we didn't pursue it, and we were happy to go on as the four-piece band. Then that accident happened in Harndorf. He was there, and he jumped up and did a few songs with us as Brewster Brothers. And John and I just looked at each other because I had mentioned all this to John. And he was starting to come around to the same opinion. That one just clinched it. We did three songs, Angel songs with Dave, and after that we asked him if he wanted to join us.
And what about Nick Norton, who you've had in the ranks for a while too? Not only a great drummer, but also quite a good vocalist, which adds something to the repertoire. Agreed?
Oh, he's a fantastic singer in his own right. A great songwriter, guitarist, drummer, and the most humble guy you could ever meet. He joined at the same time as Dave. Because, as I said, when Doc left, Buzz left the band as well. Buzz said, "If Doc's not there, I'm not there." So we said, "Okay, fair enough. We'll give mate Nick Norton a call," and he's been there ever since.
He's also a great fit in the lineup.
Oh, he is. It was funny. He began. He was more a jazz drummer than a rock drummer. and he came in with a bit of that, and it was quite amusing watching him over the first 6 months or so. He just started hitting harder and harder. And now for years now they've been with us for 6 years. And he's right up there with the top rock drummers for me. He's fantastic.
Mate, back in April, you had a health scare which caused the cancellation of a couple of gigs. How is your health currently?
Fantastic.
It's good.
I'm 100% now. It was a scary couple of weeks because I had an infection and an infection in the gut, and needed surgery, which I only found out after 9 days in one hospital. And I was actually discharged, and I went to Melbourne because I wanted to catch up with the last 2 gigs, and I did play on stage for half the set. Fortunately, we had Bob Spencer to cover for those 2 gigs, and I felt like shit the whole time. Came back home, and within a day or two, I was back in another hospital on the operating slab. And since then, it's just been recovery at 100 miles an hour, completely healthy again.
That's good to hear. Mate, you wouldn't have heard it just now, but we in fact kicked off this show with Shadowboxer, a song which peaked at number 25 on the singles chart back in 1979. I'd always thought that it went higher than that. Can I ask if chart success was important to yourself back then, something you focused on? Well,
yeah, I mean, I do remember getting the 2SM charts, I think, were the big ones back then. I mean, 2SM were the first station to actually put us on high rotation, and that was 78 with Take a Long Line, which I seem to remember went to number 4, something like that. But that, for us, that was a major breakthrough. Up until then, we had not had radio play of any significance. We released Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again in 77, and in industry terms you would call it a flop. And obviously it's one of our biggest songs now. Same with Coming Down on Me, we released, didn't do much at all. So it wasn't until Take a Long Line that got played everywhere. Once Barry Chapman at 2SM decided to put it on high rotation, it went around the country. And that was at a time when we were absolutely peaking live. We'd released Face to Face. It was starting to sell big numbers. And we landed firstly the Meatloaf tour and then the David Bowie tour. And when you add all that together, the whole thing exploded.
Now, Bob Yates, along with yourself and John, has done a wonderful job piecing this book together. Importantly, too, in getting the memories down from both Doc and Chris via past interviews. I think that gives the book a real complete feel.
Oh, definitely. It's something that Bob was... It's the reason we asked Bob to write the book, not just because he could write, but because he came from the era. He knew what was needed in story, and he had the charisma, infectious personality and drive to research the people to get the stories. It's no good just sitting down with me and John and asking us what we remember. You just get one side of the picture.
Sure.
Because you talk to guys who are in the road crews, for example, and you can pick one event and their memory of it will be quite different to what John and I remember.
It's impossible, obviously, for us to cover 4 decades in such a short space of time. However, I have highlighted a few stories from the Angels book, along with some of my own memories, which I'm hoping you can elaborate on. Let's go back to the mid-70s and focus on the Keystone Angels for a bit. You played the 4th and final Sunbury Festival in 75, a rainy 3-day event. Correct. With a low turnout of 16,000 punters, members of AC/DC and their crew apparently get into a fight with Deep Purple. Most local acts end up not being paid, I believe. Yet amongst all that turmoil, I have it on good authority from a couple of friends who attended that the Keystone Angels were the highlight of the festival. What are your memories of Sunbury 75?
I remember we certainly went down well. Jim Keys put on a show. I've forgotten what he called it now, but it was interesting, and it was quite amusing because he set himself up to descend onto the stage time capsule, but the thing got stuck halfway to the stage.
Okay.
And the poor guy must have been very embarrassing. Yeah, look, I remember it was hippie days. Peace, love everywhere. People piled up on the hillside, swimming in the lakes, and great music everywhere.
And soon after, the band did some dates with Chuck Berry. You were the support band and then his backing band. Were you apprehensive? How did that scenario work?
I shat myself when we got it because he wanted me as a piano player.
Right.
I'd only ever really played piano. That was my first instrument. And very early on in the Keystone Angels, we landed Chuck Berry, and I was to be the piano player. And I found, what's his name, Peter B, the piano player for Headband, which was Chris Bailey's band. Wonderful piano player. I had 2 crash course lessons with him, and he just showed me basically what to do with my left hand, what to do with my right hand to play a Chuck Berry song. And I had to learn every song in every key because you could never be guaranteed that Chuck would get on the fretboard without looking. That would be the key for the song that he was doing. So a song that he might have recorded in the key of A, you might find suddenly on the piano you're having to play it in B flat. And it's not like a guitar where you can just play anywhere on the neck, the same finger shape. Can't do that on piano. Every key is different. So it was a massive learning curve for me, and I spent most of that tour being petrified of having to play piano. It was a good tour, though. We really enjoyed doing those songs. We did, and we got to do our own set as a support band before Chuck.
Before we get off topic, Chuck Berry, as you know, passed away quite recently in March. I'm assuming he was hugely influential on both yourself and John?
Oh, yeah. I think influenced just about every band that exists these days.
So were there supports with Gary Glitter and Ike and Tina Turner for the band back then, or have I read that wrong?
Ike and Tina Turner, my memory is that we supported them once in Adelaide. And same with Gary Glitter. I remember both of them being great shows. Especially, I remember he did something I'd never seen before and have never seen since. He had 2 drum kits who started the show, just 2 drummers, and then 2 sax players came on and played in unison that fantastic riff, dun, 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 and that must have gone for a minute before Gary Glitter came on, and by then the audience were just on their feet. Yeah, it was a good show.
So the Keystone Angels cut the 7-inch Keep On Dancing back with Good Day Rock and Roll in 75. Then a relatively short while later as the Angels, the debut 7-inch Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again is released. I recently played those tunes back to back, and the lift in energy and sound is noticeable. I guess the band was starting to find their feet. Yeah, well, we had actually, I think we recorded three singles or EPs before we teamed up with Harry and George and recorded Never Gonna See Your Face Again. We started with a Moonshine Jug and String Band, recorded Keep You on the Move, and then there was another one, can't even remember it, That's All Right With Me, something like that, and then Keep On Dancing. That was all around 1972, 73,
maybe 74. And then we signed with Alberts, did our first recording with Harry and George, which would definitely account for the lift in energy. Both Harry and George being there producing, but also the band by then, we were fully into playing rock and roll.
We just mentioned the Chuck Berry tour, but in the next couple of years following, as you mentioned before, you'd also do Meatloaf and David Bowie tour supports. Bowie was quite impressed with the Angels, wasn't he?
Well, he must have been, because he chose the band personally to support him, and he insisted on us being billed as special guest, which was very, very flattering. And but not only that, he came and watched us, watched our shows, invited us to have dinner with him and the band. It was pretty amazing to be with a man of that stature and reputation, and have him dig the Angels.
Quite an endorsement.
It certainly was.
Rick, let's take a break by cranking a song, and I'd like to play Can't Shake It from the No Exit album. Can you tell me about how that one came about, especially the inspiration?
The first I remember of Can't Shake It, I think it was a riff of John's. He started playing it in a sound check at the Arca Bar in Adelaide, and we just jammed on it. And bit by bit, the lyrics got written, combination of John and Doc and myself, and we came when we got back to Sydney. It was just one of the songs that we wanted to put down. It was always a bit of a loose jam, that song, which is one of the reasons I still love it. Really good song to play live.
Let's talk a little about the first American jaunt. As most fans know, to avoid confusion and legal conflict with US outfit Angel, the band renamed themselves Angel City for the North American market. Was that a major issue at the time, and were there any other band names ever considered?
Yeah, we considered other names. I really wanted to call it Red Angel Panic, which I did investigate a little bit. Rob Tillett, another Adelaide singer-songwriter, guitarist, he had a band called Red Angel Panic. Great band and fantastic name. And by the time it came up for us to change our name, Red Angel Panic, I thought that would be great for us. And I think I put it to everyone, and Doc wasn't keen to do it. I never actually went the next step and asked Rob Tillett. And we eventually settled on Angel City, which I absolutely loathed and still do. Really? As a name. But it was something we had to do. And we had very little time to come up with one, and that's what we reluctantly settled on.
There are lots of great stories in the book surrounding the first American tour, in particular connecting with Cheap Trick, a band who helped you out now and again, and a friendship that has endured. How important was the band's relationship with Cheap Trick?
Oh, I mean, at the time, initially, it was just like meeting any other band. We'd worked with a lot of bands by then, you know, the ones you've mentioned, AC/DC, Cold Chisel, Men Not All, the Divinals, Icehouse, which were Flowers back when they were supporting us. And Cheap Trick was another great rock band that in a different country. But we liked them straight away as people and as a band. And then it was only later when we lost our truck in Chicago, got stolen, and Rick Nielsen jumped in the car with a bootload of guitars and turned up at the sound check, opened his boot and said, "Here you go, take what you need for the tour." So it was pretty amazing. We connected with them again, well, a couple of times. We did the Beyond Salvation tour and had them supporting us. That was a great tour. And then again, only a couple of years ago, we did Day on the Green tour with them, and we properly reconnected with Cheap Trick in Christchurch, where they took us all to dinner. We had a real chance to catch up.
That's great. And there's also great info in the book on the tour you did across the US supporting the Kinks. Talk about mayhem. So basically the Angels are blowing the Kinks away each night, and Ray Davies is attempting to sabotage your performances via different antics.
We weren't blowing them away. I wouldn't describe it like that. They drew their own crowd, and we were the support act. And I think we drew some people because we had done well up the West Coast, particularly on a previous tour. We'd played to some significant crowds, and I'm sure that a lot of those came back to see us. But these were stadiums and predominantly the Kinks crowd, and we went down really well. And despite them pulling our production, down and down each night, giving us less lights and pulling the volume down and restricting Doc's movement on stage, so you couldn't walk out on the, what do you call those things, the walkway that goes out into the crowd. He was not allowed out there. There was gaff tape saying "do not cross." And despite all that, we still managed to go down well. It was just some crazy paranoia that Ray in particular, and probably his brother Dave, couldn't handle another act going down well. And it was really foreign to us, and also they were rude. They never once said hello to us. Also because all of us were fans of the Kinks, and I still am. I think they're a great band, and I love their songs, but not as people. We weren't used to that. We came from a country where other bands are polite to each other. What we were used to was, when you walk into a gig and Peter Garrett's there, or Jimmy Barnes, or Don Walker, or whoever, Ivor Davies, you say good day and shake hands, and have a short conversation.
It is interesting because I have a full-page ad here from Billboard magazine where Epic in America are promoting the Kinks tour and indeed the Darkroom album. So I guess, it would have been disappointing to have Ray Davies' behaviour, very counterproductive. The roadies were apologetic, correct?
Yeah, not just the hired musicians. There was a keyboard player and a bass player. They were apologetic, and so we appreciated that. But obviously it was coming down from the top. And the other thing is they sounded like shit. That was really disappointing to see a great band. We all went out on the first night to watch, and it was just not a good sound at all.
And I also learnt that the band supported the Joe Perry project, with Perry becoming a fan of the Angels and inviting the band to do more gigs together, correct?
I seem to remember that. That's one of the vague ones for me. But I do remember that happening, yeah.
So, Rick, from a fan's perspective, the band always seemed so focused on the US market with not as much emphasis on Europe. Am I reading that wrong? And I asked John this same question a couple of years back, but do you think that if the band had have permanently relocated to America, you would have cracked the US market wide open?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. It was already starting to happen when we went to Europe after that first tour of America. Trouble is, as soon as you leave the country, the radio stops playing you, and you're virtually forgotten. In 200 million people, it's just you're gone, and you got to start again when you come back. But no, had we relocated, I'm sure it would have happened in a huge way. Same with Europe. In retrospect, it's very easy had we gone, but at the time you're getting caught up in day-to-day decisions.
Sure.
And our manager at the time was didn't see the benefit in going back to Europe. And in actual fact, we didn't go back to Europe for 35 years, which I think was a big mistake. We made big waves in Europe in 1980, and that was proven when we went back 35 years later. We had, a sold-out show in Paris. We had a really good show in London, and fantastic show at the Sweden Rock Festival.
Mate, a couple of random questions and I'll let you get out of here. So the band has had quite a few producers over the years. Ashley Howe, which we could talk about that time period a lot with the 2 Minute Warning. Steve Jones, of course, Mike Opitz, Steve Brown on Howling, Vanda and Young, Terry Manning, who did Beyond Salvation and Redback Fever. Who out of all those guys were you most satisfied with? And I'm meaning in terms of looking back at the finished product and being more than satisfied.
Well, my favourite albums are actually the ones that John and I produced. Just Pace and No Exit. And the recently rediscovered Skin and Bone. I think Beyond Salvation is fantastic, absolute joy to work with, and great with guitars in particular. I think he did a stunning job of that album. I can't say a bad thing about any of the producers we've worked with. Mark Opitz did some fantastic stuff with us. He was there with us, obviously, during Face to Face, No Exit, and Darkroom. He did some engineering on that. Like I say, John and I never saw any reason actually to look elsewhere. It was really a part of that thing of, George and Harry put us in that role specifically because they thought we could do it, and that was borne out with Face to Face. I think it was a really smart move of theirs. I'm sure they could have produced everything we did, but they didn't want to stamp it with their stamp. I don't know. They had an instinct about them. They saw something in us in the same way that Angus and Malcolm saw something in the Keystone Angels, and they allowed us the freedom to explore the production role, which was fantastic for us. When we left Albert's and we went to America and signed with Epic, the pressure was put on us to, that's good enough for Australia, but of course we'll need a top producer now. We'll get John Boylan in. John Boylan was a great producer, great guy. I don't think, in retrospect, that he was necessarily someone we needed. I think John and I were doing perfectly well, and I think time has proved that.
Can I ask you about John's final gig with the band, which was in January of '86, a time which the book delves into a little? I can only imagine as his brother, it would have been very, very emotional to have him depart the band after so many years, to look over stage left and it's Bob Spencer there. That must have been hard to adjust.
The period was difficult. John was difficult, and he knew it. He would say now that he agrees. It sort of, but yeah, it was difficult emotionally. It was also uplifting for me to work with someone new, and Bob Spencer was and remains a good friend, a great guitarist, and he and I wrote some songs together, had a good time together.
There's also, I was going to ask you, there's been a bunch of bands over the years who've covered Angels songs, Great White, Andy Scott's Sweet, Coney Hatch, LA Guns. Who cut the most impressive Angels covers, do you think, off the top of your head?
I can tell you, I've just got to remember his name. Mick Ronson.
Okay, Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson, they did take a long line, didn't they?
Yeah, correct. And I've heard that song a number of times, and I think he's done a great cover of that song, and they've done the guitar solo pretty much exactly as it was written, and at the end, gone on with an outro, with a bit of jamming. I was really impressed.
Mate, I'd better let you go, but before you do, every guest on our show gets to choose a song which is significant to them. Can be one of yours if you'd like. What would you like to choose and why?
Oh, boy. Well, I won't choose one of ours. I reckon I'll choose Thunderclap Newman, Something in the Air.
Let's play that. Why would you like to choose Thunderclap Newman?
Well, it's a toss-up between that and Procol Harum, What a Shade of Pale, but probably a little less known, the Something in the Air. I just thought it was one of the greatest songs I'd ever heard. And I particularly love there's a piano solo in it, like a build-up that happens. It's just great.
Let's hear that. The book is titled The Angels. It's out now, and if you are a fan of Australian rock and roll, you need to get a hold of this. Rick, thanks again for your time today. It's been a great honour. I could have spoken to you a lot longer. Great to have you on the show today.
Pleasure.